History's new scripted drama, Sons of Liberty, tells the untold story of a group of rebels who brought an empire to its knees. Sons of Liberty, a 3-night event, premieres January 25th, 9/8 Central, on History.
ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
Well, no matter how they got here, Seattle and New England should be here. Indy, Green Bay, Denver, Dallas at times outplayed these teams. Think about this, though. Think about this. The Seattle Seahawks, if you count the playoffs, have won 11 of their last 12 games and were a 4th and goal at the Kansas City 2 from winning 12 of 12. They're hot, right? Well, so are the Patriots. The Patriots are one play in Green Bay, a Gronk catch, from having won 13 straight games, like Seattle, mostly by blowout. So these two teams are 2 plays, both on the road, one in Kansas City for Seattle, one in Lambeau for New England, from having won a combined 26 straight games, mostly by blowout for both teams. We've got the 2 best, the 2 hottest, the 2 deepest NFL teams. 2 good head coaches, some would say great, 2 quarterbacks that win about 75% of their games. I know Green Bay coulda, woulda, shoulda. These 2 teams are 2 plays away, 1 each, from 26 straight wins. These are the best rosters. They are. They are. I mean, Dallas felt like they outplayed Green Bay for big portions. Green Bay won. It's interesting. This is not only a rule for sports, but often in business. Aggressive usually wins. I saw a story this morning. The NFL is looking into whether the Patriots deflated some of the game balls. Belichick! Then I got Reed Hawkins on my Twitter feed. Why do they keep doing this, Colin? Why do they do stuff like this when they don't have to? Well, should ESPN not take risks because we're clear number 1? New England's entire culture, push, gain an advantage. Every inch becomes a foot. They're never going to stop. By the way, you know who else is like that? Pete Carroll, who was busted at USC for hiring a special teams coach that he knew he couldn't, who has twice been busted by the league for too much contact at practice, and has had players using Adderall, which I'm sure he had no idea of. Folks, Belichick and Pete Carroll, you think they're dissimilar? They're incredibly similar. Both known for legendarily aggressive and spirited and competitive practices. Ask yourself, ever met anybody that's really wealthy, like really rich? They're never content. Their finish line's a coffin. They don't get to like, I'm worth $28 million, I'm stopping. That's why Belichick pushes. That's why Pete Carroll pushes. New England's culture, seek any edge you can. Pete Carroll, USC, and Seattle. Keep pushing. Practice. What you put in your body. Who you hire on special teams in college. That's not a shot at either. But right now, this next 2 weeks, we'll be celebrating the 2 most aggressive coaches in their sport. Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick. Drew Bledsoe played for both. I'll ask him about that in about 30 minutes. So this morning, Green Bay, fans are going nuts, right? We were not aggressive enough. You can make a very spirited argument that Green Bay was the better team on that day, but it was their lack of aggressiveness that beat them. 4th and goal, 6-inch line first quarter, went for points. 4th and goal, 1-yard line next possession, again went for the field goal. 2nd quarter, 4th and 1, Hawks 22, another field goal. Early in the 4th, leading 16-0, 4th and 1 midfield, punted. Now in this instance, and fans, media tend to be backseat drivers, in this instance, I got it. Vegas had the line at like 45, so Vegas was telling you it's a 24-21 game. You go on the road, Seattle doesn't score a lot. Mike McCarthy probably knows we're not going to score a ton. This place is bananas in the stands. If I can get field goals, I get points on the board. I'm not leaving any off the board, and I want to quiet this crowd up. And it worked. 16-0. Crowd was a non-factor second, third quarters. And then things went a little sideways. But I think when I look at this weekend, aggressive won. Fake field goal, Seattle. Push, Pete. 2-point conversion. Go. Onside kick. Go. The aggressive team beat the team that played it safe, although you can argue, and I can get it, played it smart. I think when you go into a game where even Vegas says, this is 23-20, that's the over-under, you take points. You take the 3. You may not get back there with Seattle's defense. You want to quiet the crowd up. You know what I mean? You take the points. But aggressive won this weekend. Aggressive Bill, aggressive Pete, aggressive Seahawks. And we also live in a culture, it's a blame culture. I'm seeing Mike McCarthy just getting clobbered today. Is he the guy that didn't catch the onside kick? Is he the guy who intercepted the ball, had 30 yards of free sailing and went down to a knee? Is he the defensive back on the lob 2-point conversion who kind of sat and watched it? Players won this game and players lost this game. I mean, we can talk about coaches all day, but Seattle guys made plays. Green Bay Packer players did not. Opening rant, Regis, new way to work, call 1-800-OFFICES, 1-800-OFFICES. Everybody is saying, it's a great game. I thought it was a really sloppy game, Green Bay and Seattle. It was 7 turnovers. The weather was a mess. There were 7 turnovers. I thought, and we'll talk about this later, I thought it got great at the onside kick. Then I thought it was just stupendous. But to tell you, at 6 minutes to go, when Green Bay intercepted the ball, my wife's out of town, so I was making spaghetti for a couple kids. And my stepson and I are watching, and he has to drive back to college, So after Seattle throws another interception, trails 19-7, Josh turned the TV off. All right, I'm going back to college, high five. And I'm like, I kind of wanted to watch the end of the game. But I thought, game over. So I sat there, finished up the spaghetti, gave it to my daughter, and I run upstairs, and I think, I just want to catch the end. I just want to catch the end. Oh, wait a minute. Touchdown Seattle night, 1914. And I just saw the end of it. So I will be honest. I missed one of those touchdowns. Never give up, people! Never give up! Stepson, turn the TV off, leaves. I almost didn't go upstairs. I almost didn't go. But I'm like, Seattle's weird at home. Game's kind of over, but walk upstairs. Only missed 2 minutes. 1914. They were getting ready for the onside kick. I blame the spaghetti. I'll never have pasta again near a football game. Again, if I'd microwaved like a burrito or, I'd been upstairs. Crazy, crazy stuff. Aaron Rodgers again. Outdueled late. What? Come on, that's not fair. What do we make of Andrew Luck? What do we make of the Colts? We're lively today. I'll tell you, I don't hang around on Twitter much, but yesterday I wanted to see Twitter non-sports people. I went to chefs and I went to political people, and everybody was watching those games. That Green Bay Seattle game, I want to see the rating for that thing. I'm telling you, man, who in America wasn't watching Green Bay and Seattle at the end?
Colin Cowherd.
The Thundering Herd Podcast.
Listen, Packer fans are going to go crazy. Mike McCarthy did this, but Mike McCarthy didn't butcher the onside kick or the 2-point conversion. The Packer players had opportunities and just butchered them. But I will say this, is that, and I think it's very funny that there's a story about how the Patriots may have deflated footballs and everybody's all over Belichick, but Pete Carroll at USC, if you really go look what happened when he left the program, he left it saddled with NCAA baggage. You blame the NCAA. Pete hired a special teams coach he had no business hiring, and he knew better. Then he goes to Seattle. They've had Adderall issues. They've twice been tagged by the league for, either too much practice or too much contact at practice. That's who Pete is. Pete is a push. And I'm not blaming it. That's just who Pete Carroll is. Years ago, I went to a practice with Kirk Herbstreit. This was like 10 years ago when Pete was at USC. And Kirk goes to all these practices. I go to maybe one or two a year. And we sat and looked at each other, and Kirk said to me, he goes, this doesn't even look like other college teams. It was just so aggressive, hitting and loud and screaming. And that's who Pete is. That's why teams become their coach. And the Seahawks, if nothing else, are the most aggressive team in the league. So are the Patriots. They pour it on. They look for edges. The difference is we like Pete Carroll because he's handsome, and he's kind of got this West Coast boyish enthusiasm, and he's uplifting. And we don't like Belichick because he's dark and brooding and cold. They're the same guy. They are similar. And Drew Bledsoe is going to come on in 15 minutes. He played for both. And listen, aggressive does win. I mean, Rupert Murdoch's been bankrupt 3 times. Trump has, or his companies have. Successful people aren't always smarter, but they're almost always more aggressive. Be it Mark Cuban, Trump, it doesn't matter. Aggressive is really important. But I do understand what Mike McCarthy was doing. The over-under on that game was like 44, and Vegas is pretty accurate on this stuff. What it's telling you is this was a 24-20 game. You go to Seattle, you want to quiet that crowd up. You get points on the board, it gets quiet. You can say you got to go for it, but hindsight's 20/20. You don't know if you're going to get back into that red zone with Seattle. You don't know. So when you get an opportunity with Seattle to get points, take them. You're not going into that game. It's not like when you play Oregon in college football, well, you know you're going to have to score 38 to win. That's when you go for it. When you're going to go up against a team like the Cowboys that score a lot with a bad defense, you probably go for it with the Cowboys. That's why I crushed Detroit when they didn't go for it, 4th and 1 late in the game against the Cowboys. Bad defense. You're facing a really high-powered offense. You got to take some chances. Seattle doesn't score much. They're at home. The weather's awful. Take the points. 3s become 6s, become 9, become 12. Aaron gets you to, 26. In that instance, I got it. But I understand this morning how a Packer fan wakes up and goes, Seattle was more aggressive. I don't think that game was about coaching. McCarthy had his guys in the right spot. And I don't like to use the word choke, so I'm not going to. Greg Norman choked. He admitted it. I'm not a big fan of saying guys choked. But I'll say this. Green Bay got tight. That's not Mike McCarthy's issue. Green Bay their players got tight. So, that's what you have. In the New England-Indianapolis game, I saw a quote this morning Jim Irsay said about the Colts, we've got to be a tougher team. Yeah, but you also know what? You got to be a better team. Because I said this morning to the guys, if you took out Luck and Brady in the Patriots-Colts game, take out Luck and Brady. Let's not argue about who's better, okay? Take them out. List the 10 best players in that football game. I'd say 8 or 9 are Patriots. Gronk, Revis, Vince Wilfork, Jamie Collins, Brandon Browner. You get to a Colt, Vontae Davis, Julian Edelman, Rob Ninkovich, Nate Solder, maybe a T.Y. Hilton. It's a lot of Patriots. It is a lot of Patriots. They're better at corner. They're better on the defensive line. They're better on the offensive line. They have a better running game. They have a more seasoned quarterback. Let's be honest. You watch that Colts game, they don't have the personnel of New England. And by the way, Belichick was toying with Pagano and that staff. He was toying with that staff. Who's eligible, who's not. It was not a good day for Andrew Luck. It was not a good day for Chuck Pagano. That roster's got to get better. They didn't even activate Trent Richardson. They gave him a first-round pick for him. He wasn't even active. They need more good players. So I don't know if it's a soft thing, but I always felt Peyton Manning was surrounded by Pro Bowlers. Pass rushers, Sanders at safety, Brackett was an underappreciated linebacker, Hall of Famers at receiver, top running backs, good O-line. This Colts team's not very good. Look, can we be totally frank about this in the NFL? We could have a Green Bay-Baltimore Super Bowl. It's close. It's inches, not feet with these great teams. But Brady and Russell Wilson made plays. Tom Jackson talked about this. Seattle opened as a favorite, I was surprised. 2.5 points. The wise guys came pouring in on New England. It's now pick 'em. I think New England's the better team. I think you can run on Seattle. If New England has the ability to run on you, you're in trouble because they'll start screwing with you. Brady's great play action. They can pass. They can slot it. They're great on special teams. New England's defense is wildly underrated. Everybody's paying attention to Seattle's defense. New England's defense this year humiliated Peyton Manning, Matt Stafford, Andrew Luck twice, and held at Lambeau Aaron Rodgers to a field goal in the last 2 quarters. Tom Jackson talked about this New England, and intellectually, now they're throwing the ball to tackles.
They give you a lot to think about. You've got 2 weeks to do it before you play the game in Arizona. But from formations to the challenges that they present in the passing game to the things that they do, the variations they present defensively, they give you a full plate. Pete Carroll and his staff will be busy. As a linebacker, if I'm playing for Seattle, I just got to know who's in the game. I got to know, first of all, who's in the game and where they're lining up. That's going to be a challenge.
But Green Bay fans today, there's going to be, if you were listening to Green Bay, Wisconsin radio, it's going to be a blame Mike McCarthy. I absolutely understand on the road against Seattle, a team that doesn't score much with a prodigious defense. I get taking the points. I really do. I really do. Everybody's going to just destroy Mike McCarthy today. You don't know if you're getting back in that red zone with Seattle. Take what you can take, and the weather was far worse than television made it look like. I had friends at that game. It was pouring. I mean, there were 7 turnovers. People couldn't hang on to the football. It was a mess. John, you're in the herd. Go ahead.
Hey, Colin, I got to disagree with you as far as the taking the points go. I mean, you're in the red zone. You're on the 1-yard line twice. And you're talking about how bad the weather is. Mason Crosby makes 2 51-yard field goals. You can't go for it at least once. And I understand, hindsight's 20/20 and all of that. And looking back at the game, you might say, oh, well, if they had 3 more points, they might not have gone to overtime. But you got to go for it at least once and force Russell Wilson to go 99 yards after he was 0 for 6 at the beginning of the game.
Well, if you go for it and don't make it, you don't go to overtime. I mean, I could make the argument that you would have never gone to an overtime. So, I mean, again,
and that's my point is I understand hindsight's 20/20, so I'm not saying that. I'm saying force them to, your defense playing so well at that point. Force them to go those yards. Force them to make those 99 yards.
I get it.
See what happens.
I get it today. I do, and aggressive does win, and I totally get it. And you can make the argument if you have Aaron Rodgers, you should always go for it on 4th and 1. But, man, when you go into Seattle and it's raining sideways with that defense and that crowd, I'm taking points. And, hey, Seattle doesn't score a lot of points. Field goals matter in Seattle. Seattle doesn't score much, and they don't give much up. That's why Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson and 2 great coaches were in that game. The over-under was 45. You know what that means? Vegas saw it as a 23-20 game, a 24-20 game. Field goals matter in 24-20 games. They don't when Oregon plays Ohio State. Then you go for it.
You're in the herd. The Thundering Herd Podcast.
One of my guys, Drew Bledsoe, Super Bowl champ, played for both Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick, joining us in the herd on ESPN Radio. So I hear you're feeling a little responsible for the Packers' collapse, Drew.
Colin, I think like everybody else, I think the game was over. There was no chance, right? But I did something that I know better than to do. I sent a text to my great friend Alex Van Pelt, who has the privilege of coaching Aaron Rodgers. He's the quarterback coach of the Packers. I sent him a congratulatory text. Just said, congrats on the win, on to the Super Bowl, buddy. I'm happy for you. And right as I sent it, I said, gosh, I should just wait a little bit. But I jinxed them, and they lost. It's my fault.
How do you explain Russell Wilson? He's hard to categorize. I mean, he just doesn't do things like other people. He's kind of a cerebral playmaker. What do you make of him as a former great quarterback, and you watch him? What comes to mind?
Well, the thing that was so strange yesterday is that one thing I've always said about Russell Wilson is that he just never hurts his team. He never turns the ball over and never makes that big negative play. And all of a sudden yesterday, ends up with 4 interceptions. Now, one, should go in that separate category, right? He hit the receiver right in the hands, and it ends up being an interception. I've always thought that should be a different category of interception. It shouldn't go on the quarterback, but ends up with 4 interceptions. But I thought he showed something that was really unique yesterday, and maybe the most important component of being a successful quarterback for a long time, and that's the resiliency that he showed. 4 interceptions, their team's down. Things are really, really not looking good, and the guy just hung in there and kept fighting. And I think that if you're going to hang your hat on and bet your franchise on one quarterback, that's one of the most important characteristics you have to see as a guy that can battle through adversity, and he really showed that yesterday.
Well, you live in the state of Washington. DoublebackWine.com is your company in Walla Walla, Washington, and you have the connection, meanwhile, to the New England Patriots because you played there. You think from the outside that Pete's this sort of hippy-dippy, different guy, and Belichick is intense and dark. But could you argue that Bill and Pete are more similar now than dissimilar?
I played for both of them. Played for Pete for 3 years, played for Bill for a few years, and was around them both. And I would say they're definitely far more similar. There are a lot more similarities between the two guys than there are differences. The differences are purely stylistic, but the substance is very, very similar between the two guys. Pete, you watch his press conferences and you hear the way he talks, and I think people could have that impression that he's kind of just this happy-go-lucky, kind of crazy guy. But man, Pete's got an edge to him, and I played for him. I've seen it, and the thing that the two coaches do is they create a culture of intense competition on the field in practice. And they both make sure that their players know that there's no free lunch. There's guys looking for your position at all times. And then you look at Belichick. I was out there for the Dolphins game here recently, and I think he's enjoying the ride a little bit more now than maybe he has in the past. I was on the sidelines. He came running over and big smile and gave me a hug, and we talked for a minute. I think he's actually enjoying this ride quite a bit.
How do you explain the Patriots' continued success? You can just say Belichick this, Belichick that, but there's got to be several factors here.
There's two things, Colin, that jump out to me that really separate the Patriots from other organizations. Number one is they are not slaves to convention, right? The NFL is such a copycat league. There are very few new ideas.
Yeah.
But the Patriots, you look at the way that they play football. They'll have one game, they'll come out and they'll hand it off, 50 times and run for 300 yards and not really throw it very much. And then they'll come out another game and they won't even hand it off for 2 quarters. They'll just throw it on every single down. You watch what they do defensively. It's not like they have decided, at the beginning of the season, hey, we're a blitzing team or we're a coverage team. They just do whatever they think they need to do to win that particular game. I think it became very apparent with the different formations that they've used and what they did against the Ravens and some things that you just really haven't seen, at least not in recent, football. So that's one thing. They're not slaves to convention like other teams are. And then the other thing that the Patriots do that really is unique is that they teach football. There's a tendency in pro sports and in football in general, or in particular, to think that once you get a player on your team, he's a finished product. And that, if he doesn't do well, then you just go replace him. The Seahawks, they'll bring guys in. They'll have guys parked on their practice squad for a year or two. And while they're there, they're actually teaching them the game of football so they get better. And all of a sudden, it'll be in a game, it'll be some guy you've never heard of that comes in and lights it up.
Yeah, that Jamie Collins, that kind of hybrid linebacker for New England, over the last 2 years, he's become a complete difference maker for New England's defense. And as a rookie, he kind of looked lost. I think you're right. Is that you know what else I noticed with these two teams? They're both hyper-aggressive. New England's now deflating footballs, according to a story this morning. Pete had an Adderall issue, and they hit too much in practice. And these guys, they are both going downhill 1,000 miles an hour trying to find an edge. It seems to me.
They really, truly are. And it's a pervasive attitude. You go watch these two teams. You watch them when they practice, practice is always intense at that level, but there's an edge in their practices that is different than other teams.
Well, I am a member of Doubleback.com, your wines. I send them to friends and athletes, and it's not a celebrity wine. It's my favorite cab. By the way, now it should be noted you can sell your wine in Patriot territory.
We can, man. I got to dip my toe in those murky political waters. I was a lobbyist, a registered lobbyist in Massachusetts, and I hope it's my only foray into the political arena. But we were successful. We got the law changed up there. We can now ship wine directly to our great Patriots fans up in Massachusetts, and we hope that they have reason to celebrate here in a couple weeks.
Well,
hopefully they'll do that with some Doubleback wine.
And I've had it. I am a member. I am a regular consumer of it. I could not be happier. Now go take a shower after having to be a lobbyist. Just go shower, please.
Yeah, I will. It's one of those deals, Colin, that you kind of think you know how things happen, and then you get inside and you see how the sausage is really made, and it's interesting. I'll just leave it at that.
Drew Bledsoe, continued success, bud.
Thanks, Colin. Always appreciate it, man.
Yeah, he thinks Pete and Bill Belichick are very similar, and I do too. I really do. I think we like Pete more because Pete seems like he's more fun to be around. He's more pro player. Belichick, kind of grumpy, but players like him too. But the two teams that are in the Super Bowl are just the most aggressive. And for the record, Seattle could have lost to Green Bay, and New England trailed Baltimore twice in that game, once in the second half by 14 points. So we're not that far off from a Green Bay-Baltimore Super Bowl. And Baltimore was my dark horse about week 10 on to make the Super Bowl. Could easily be in it, just one interception. So I think when you get down to the very end, the only surprise to me, in fact, I'll play something that I said in California. There was only really one surprise in the final 8 for me. Look at Carolina. Cam Newton gave Seattle big problems. Cam Newton played great in Seattle. Green Bay had Seattle in big trouble.
Putting style in black T-shirts. It's Colin Cowherd, the Thundering Herd Podcast.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
I'm getting all these Packer emails. You're missing the point about Mike McCarthy, Green Bay coach. He is most responsible. He and his coaching staff failed to adequately prepare the players for the situations they encountered. Oh, stop it, Pete. What more can you do? The ball on special teams play, onside kick, went right to the player who was in perfect position. You can't go out there and babysit him. McCarthy's guys were in the right position. They didn't make plays. I mean, the guy on special teams was standing in the right position. Ball came right to him. You can't babysit him. Stop blaming coaches. Players didn't make plays. That Dixon, Dixon, the defensive back, Clinton, Dixon. What's his name? Clinton. He's an Alabama kid. Clinton Dix. I knew the laugh was before or after. I couldn't figure it out. So he had a great game. He had one interception was by one-handed. And then he made a misjudgment in a wild rainstorm of another alley-oop ball. It's not a coaching error. He was in the right spot. I think, one of the things I noticed with Green Bay, and everybody's personality, yours, mine, everybody's is formed at 7, 8, and 9 years old. I always laugh when people think they're going to change Randy Moss, or they're going to change Warren Sapp, or they're going to change Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley is who he is because of what happened at 7, 8, 9 years old, maybe younger. Aaron Rodgers is the opposite personality of Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning needs control. He's a teeth clencher. Kind of rigid. Do it this way. throw a little wind in, throw a little longer commercial break. Peyton is a teeth clencher. Needs control. Aaron Rodgers is like, yo, bro, California cool, borders on arrogant. Got time, relax, chill, let's make it up as we go. Kind of an independent guy. They're different guys. But I think sometimes it's off-putting. I mean, we've seen Mike McCarthy behind the scenes has told people, and I know this absolutely as fact because I've heard it on several occasions, McCarthy's told people Aaron can be difficult. We've had teammates call out Aaron Rodgers as arrogant. I don't know if he's arrogant. Even yesterday after the loss, he's just sort of California cool, settle down everybody, things happen.
It's going to be a missed opportunity that we'll probably think about the rest of my career. We were the better team today. We played played well enough to win, and we can't blame anybody but ourselves.
He's not blaming anybody but themselves. He says we're the better team than Seattle. He doesn't care if Seattle's offended. I mean, Aaron's just one of those guys. I mean, Peyton Manning would never come out and say, we were the better team today. It's not in Peyton Manning's DNA. That's okay. It is absolutely in Aaron Rodgers' DNA. That's okay. But I've always thought quarterbacks can be mostly, you could say, two words and kind of sum up their personality. When I think of Peyton Manning, I think of intense and control. Like he needs control, he's really intense. Those aren't bad words. Brady, I think of cool, confident. Luck, I think of risk, cerebral. Brett Favre, undisciplined, talented. And with Aaron Rodgers, nonchalant, independent. He does things on his own clock, in his own way, says what he said, and he's kind of nonchalant. He's always like, oh, we'll be fine. Chill out, everybody. We're okay. And he's going to say what he wants to say and do what he wants to do, and it turns some people off. You'd never hear Peyton Manning say, we outplayed him. We were the better team. Peyton's very much controlled, puts the tie on, goes to the presser. What can I say that's good for me, sponsors, the league? Aaron Rodgers is not going to run a football team when he's done. Peyton Manning may be a general manager. Aaron Rodgers is not going to do that. He's got better things to do. He'll go tour with bands. He'll just, that's just who he is. So, I think sometimes Aaron's sort of nonchalance can be maddening to people. I really do. But this is what he is. You get the good with the bad, and he's still a remarkable talent. He is. The ball doesn't even look the same coming off Aaron Rodgers' arm as it does everybody else. It doesn't look the same. Brady, everybody else kind of throws the same way. Aaron, puts the ball up, and it explodes out of it. He's a mega talent. But he is sort of, yo, what up? We're the better team, lost. And I think sometimes it frustrates people. Yeah, Trent brings up a good point. Trent, you're in the herd. Go ahead, bring up your point. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, Colin, after one of his wins, a game he won, he was bothered the way the scoreboard operator was playing the music. And, he's really smart during the games, but I think that those little things tend to get to him, and I think he gets rattled by that stuff.
Yeah, no, Trent, it's very funny. He wanted to control the scoreboard operator. That's who Peyton is. I don't like the way our scoreboard operator is doing things. Peyton, just go play. Just go play. Go off script. And Aaron's more of a, kind of like Favre, I'm going to go off script. Some guys are comfortable doing that. Some guys are not. I mean, I've heard this from people around Peyton. He's got to control everything. That's fine. It's made him one of the greats of all time. But there are times in big games when the weather wasn't as good, when the commercial breaks are longer, when preparation's altered because the networks have things to do. Well, it doesn't like that. It doesn't like that. Look at Packer fans. They're all lined up. It was McCarthy coaching. By the way, was it McCarthy's bad coaching when you were up 16-0 in Seattle? Was that McCarthy's lousy coaching too? Yeah, that was McCarthy's bad coaching. 16-0 lead in Seattle. Nobody in the world thought Green Bay would be leading Seattle 16-0. Where was the coaching then? Was it bad? Tom Brady was on WEEI radio in Boston, Massachusetts this morning. He does that on Mondays. And there was a story out this morning that the NFL is investigating the Patriots. Deflated footballs, perhaps, an advantage? I'm not sure how. Tom Brady was asked about it.
Did you get the sense that you were able to grip the ball better than the Colts last night? Would you care to weigh in on that?
I think I heard it all at this point. So, oh God.
Tom Brady is laughing at that. I mean, come on. All right, here we go. Mike McCarthy's taken a lot of shots today. Green Bay's head coach is just getting rolled by Packer fans. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, Colin, I was just concerned with or not concerned, but I was thinking about what you were saying about Aaron Rodgers being nonchalant. I don't know why Mike McCarthy can't manage that. And to me, the biggest part of the game that showed that was the option route before halftime, when really we should be pounding the ball and going for the jugular. I don't understand that. Belichick would manage it and be heard. Coach Jackson would manage it and be heard, and things would be followed through on. So I'm not really just trying to blame McCarthy. I think it's indicative of their relationship and his lack of control.
Well, who's ever managed Kobe well?
Phil probably the best.
Phil probably the best, and then ripped him in his book. Dude, yeah. You can't manage the megastars. It's rock and roll guys. You can't manage them. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback talent in the world. You're going to have a hard time managing him. You're not going to manage Mick Jagger. He's going to manage himself. Who's ever managed Kobe? LeBron.
True.
Listen, some guys like Luck and Brady tend to be kind of like really coachable. That's very rare. Magic Johnson, good luck managing him. Michael Jordan, good luck managing him. He ran coaches out of the building. Some guys like Tim Duncan are easier to manage. Tom Brady, Tim Duncan, Derek Jeter, but a lot of guys aren't. A lot of mega talents are hard to manage because they don't need the coach. They don't need him. The most brilliant engineers at Apple are the hardest guys to manage because they know they don't need Apple. 10 other companies would hire them in a minute. Much easier to manage people who need the job. Much easier to manage less talented people. It's going to be hard to manage, Aaron Rodgers. Mike D'Antoni called Kobe on this show secretariat. He said, you don't manage him, you ride him. There is no managing him. So I think everybody's just clobbering the coach today.
Want more of the Herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
All right, Tim Hasselbeck is joining me, ESPN NFL analyst. All right, let's start.
With you big-timing me? Is that what we should start like last week when you big-timed me? And you were like, hey, Peyton Manning, even though they're going to pay him $20 million, he should just retire. 93 touchdowns and 25 picks in the last 2 years. He's done. He stinks. He couldn't play for anybody. Okay. Are you kidding me?
You see who my new avatar is?
Yeah, that's the other thing. You big-time me, and next thing you know, I'm on the show with you weekly. Never once been on it. I didn't even think a twit pic has been posted by you. Nothing. Instead, you and Tebow is your Twitter avatar for the show.
You see that?
Awesome, dude. It's great.
So amped up, dude.
Yeah, I was pretty amped to see that. That was fantastic.
Let's start with the onside kick. Everybody, listen, I've defended Mike McCarthy today. The field goal's early. It's points. You're on the road. I don't have a problem with that. Let's start with the onside kick, though. I was watching you on SportsCenter. What happened?
Well, I agree with you on McCarthy. Take the points early. You're on the road, and there's so much football left at that point. When you get to the onside kick, people have to realize that just because you're on the hands team, it doesn't mean they want you to handle the football.
That's right.
Okay? So now if you look at the way that they were lined up, you have John Kuhn, you have Richard Rodgers, Brandon Bostic, and Andrew Corliss. So you have a fullback and three tight ends.
Big dude, big tough dude.
They're the front line. Now they handle the football on offense, but they're not the guys that you necessarily want fielding the football. Now Dallas uses Jason Witten in that Jordy Nelson spot. So Jordy Nelson is behind those four guys. They're the wall. So their job when that ball's kicked, if it's bounced on the ground and propelled into the air, which that kick was, their job is to go attack and block the guys that are covering the onside kick.
Even if it looks like you've got a shot to catch it.
They don't want you touching it. They do not want you touching the football. It's like having two returners back on a deep kick. Guess what? They want Devin Hester catching it. They don't want the other up guy to catch it. That is designed to have Jordy Nelson catch the football. It actually was set up perfectly to have Jordy Nelson catch the football.
But the up guy,
Bostic, for whatever reason, it's not just about him not fielding the football. He never should have put himself in the position to be fielding it. He should have gone forward to block Chris Matthews, the guy who ends up recovering the football. He should have gone and blocked him, which would have created more room for Jordy to catch it. I mean, the special teams coach on the sideline is basically looking at him saying, what are you doing? Like, this is such a... He went so far off the reservation in terms of what the decision was before he even had his hands on the football.
And you know he's been coached to do the right thing.
Yes,
sometimes.
It's so frustrating for a coach.
Okay, I didn't have a problem with the early field goals. My argument was the over-under was 44. You knew you were in a 24-20 game. Seattle doesn't score a lot. If I can quiet the crowd and get threes, I'll take it all day. Did you have a problem?
No problem with that. I think that was fine. And to be honest with you, I didn't have an issue with it. You obviously don't have an issue with it. I don't think Aaron Rodgers had an issue with it.
He did. Aaron looked like he was okay with it.
And people are taking comments Aaron made after the game as if, he wanted Mike McCarthy to go for it. The comments that Aaron Rodgers was frustrated with after the game was the fact that after the Morgan Burnett interception,
leading 19-7,
you get the ball back with a little over 5 minutes left.
And they went conservative there.
That is where he was frustrated because you run it 3 times. They actually lost yardage on that possession.
Yep.
And then you ended up punting the football. They shank it. It goes out of bounds at the 31-yard line. Seattle gets the ball at the 31-yard line. That's pretty good field position when you're trying to, hurry up and end up with 2 scores with, I guess at that point, about 3.5 minutes left in the game.
Yeah.
And they had, I believe at that point, had used all of their timeouts. So they ran 2 plays before the 2-minute warning. When you look at that sequence there, that is a sequence that I think is preposterous just as a football team. And we can blame Mike McCarthy and you can blame Bostic. Morgan Burnett picks that football off.
Oh, good Lord.
And he goes down. Julius Peppers is telling him to go down. Colin, I mean, they're acting like they were protecting a 4-score game or there was 30 seconds left
He had a gateway of about 30 yards.
He potentially scores. And if he doesn't score, you're probably at least in field goal range, and then you're kicking a field goal there
to go up 22-7,
which changes the game. So that to me, that was a fails all around by Green Bay. I think choking in the moment.
Okay, now we've mostly agreed. We'll get to Peyton Manning in a second. They're claiming this morning, Tom Brady laughed about it on EEI, deflated footballs for New England. This just feels like bitterness that they continue to dominate the AFC. Do you buy into it?
Well, I don't know that. It's going to definitely play as a bitterness thing, like a sour grapes, hey, we lost.
But does it happen?
I think you have to look at probably the timeline of how these things happen. They didn't get their doors blown off and say, hey, their footballs were flat. I think what happened was there was obviously an issue or perceived to be an issue with the balls during the game. And so, and generally speaking, if you think about, well, when could there be an issue with the ball? When would the opposing team have, the New England Patriots ball in their possession after a turnover? So DeQuell Jackson intercepts a football. I guess that would have been the second quarter or late first quarter.
Down by the goal line.
And so now, look, you intercept Tom Brady in an AFC playoff game, AFC championship game. You want to keep that football. So now you have that football. Like, if it doesn't seem right, then you say, hey, listen, we want these balls to be right,
You're saying the Colts, they should have in the moment.
Well, so what I'm saying is, I'm guessing that this has happened. I'm speculating here, just to be clear. I'm speculating at that point. You say, this doesn't feel right, because that's when the equipment guys would have the football. Chuck Pagano's not handling the football. He's not saying, hey, this is what happened. It would be the equipment guys. So the equipment guys say, hey, something's not right. You say it to the official, excuse me. And then the officials then have to look at it. Well, if you look at what happened at halftime, they clearly were looking at the footballs. I mean, I think that's the one thing here. New England was winning that game if they played with a completely flat football. Okay, I just want to be very clear about that. But to act like this, this isn't a manufactured event. The NFL is looking into the way those footballs were managed.
Have you ever played in your career and somebody monkey with the footballs?
Everyone does. There's no question everyone does. On Fridays, the starting quarterback will go into the equipment room, and you'll get, probably 2 dozen balls, and you'll pick out the 12 that you want. They'll submit those to the officials. The officials will mark them up. Then the officials, will test them, make sure the pressure is right and everything, and give them back to the equipment team. And then the ball boys are handling them. I've been a ball boy. Actually been a ball boy for the New England Patriots. I mean, if you wanted to let air out of a ball during the game, all you'd have to have is a needle in your pocket, and you could do it. It's not preposterous to think that it would happen. You would have to have a reason to do it, though. You'd have to be instructed to do it. Point I'm making on this is that it didn't impact the outcome of the game.
Didn't affect it. But it's an issue. But it didn't affect it.
And it's something that everyone doctors balls up differently. Some teams use dirt. Some teams use, kind of a attacking towel. Other teams will heat them up in an oven. Other people just use water.
That's what I've always
done. That type
of
stuff.
I like ovens. A lot of times I'll make a pizza, put a football in there. It's always worked for me.
Technology gone bad. Gone bad. This is the Thundering Herd podcast.
So I don't get Dill for, especially wearing a suit in studio like once a year.
Well, part of this, I've been waiting for this segment all along because I feel like our relationships kind of just become this phone call, 10-minute thing. And we have deep roots.
And then
we spend a lot of time eye to eye, studio, deep conversations, fixing the world problems, and we go way back. Right. And now we just turn in this 10-minute. I'm usually in an airport going to Monday Night Football, bad connection.
Right.
So I'm reminiscing a little bit right now. I'm getting a little
and remember
choked up.
What we did last year, I took you and we drank like 6 bottles of wine.
A lot, yes.
So are you going to be available for our big?
Yeah.
You know what I told the suits? So the suits, we went out.
We're going to charge the suits, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Or crush them.
So last year they're like, Mo comes to me, he goes, it was $448. I'm like, you don't get these sources off cheap wine. I said, I bought 4 bottles of wine.
I think it was more than that. I think you're being kind right now.
So
those are some big reds.
I said, you can't break stories without occasionally dropping some vino. So we'll do it in Scottsdale.
All right.
Okay. So, first of all, everybody is blamed. Now, you have a different opinion than me, and I like this. I got McCarthy saying, listen, there's not going to be much score in this game. Let's go field goals. Points on the board. Shut the crowd up. You are a little more guts.
Listen, I don't think it's the reason the Packers lost.
Okay.
That McCarthy kicked a field goal down there on 4th and inches. However, I had the sense that you're going to Seattle. This is proven the hardest place in football to play. I mean, it's nuts when you're there. Against the best defense we've seen since my 2000 Ravens and that Ray Lewis defense. You only have so many opportunities to put it in the end zone. And that's what we lose in all this narrative around these games. Who can put it in the end zone? Which team can score touchdowns? The more field goals you kick, the closer you are to losing. And you're down there. You have momentum. You have to try to get 6 there. I felt right then. And then I said it in the war room with Shefty and Boom and TJ and all. And it kind of went away because they got up 16-0. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, at some point, it's like an NBA team. The Seahawks are going to make a run. Every great NBA team makes a run. I watch a ton of NBA, and you always know it. They're down 16, blah, 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 Spurs are. They're going to make a run and get this to a 2-4-point game. I felt that about the Seahawks. I'm like, if they score the touchdown early, now it's a different story.
So can I make the argument that the two aggressive cultures, Seattle and New England, are in the Super Bowl?
Aggressive, smart, free. Those players play free. There's no burden. They're not scared. They're not scared to lose. Both those teams go out there and just let it rip. I was texting the sports psychologist for the Seahawks last night, like, give me some insight about how you can do this as a team. And I've worked with them for years in my Elite 11. Blah, blah. And he goes, it's easy. There's no big games. There's no big moments. Nothing's bigger than anything else. Every moment's just that, a moment. Every game's just that, a game. And our guys let it rip no matter what, whether it's the NFC Championship game or whether it's a preseason game, whether it's a spring practice, it's the same exact mentality. So when bad things start happening to you,
you don't freak out.
You don't freak out because they're just singular moments. Not one moment's bigger than the next moment.
Yeah, I was saying this before you came on the air, is I think coaches are struggling a little bit. Most are. There's really a sea change. It used to be you led 19-7, 6 minutes. That game's over. I mean, your travel secretary's going to the sidelines. What do you want for your meal? I find teams. I had a bigger problem with Green Bay going run with 6 minutes left. Am I wrong or right that coaches are all kind of dealing with this? You can score now. Oregon scored, 9 touchdowns under 38 seconds.
Football's different.
Totally different.
The game has totally changed. We said it in this 5 years ago. We started saying it. Hold on now. The climate of football is changing. Friday football is changing Sunday football. Not Saturday football. Friday football is changing Sunday football. I was with Gus Malzahn at the national championship game, sitting there talking to him just about the genesis of tempo and zone read and all this stuff. He's like, it's a trickle-up effect. It's not a trickle-down effect. The game is trickling up from Friday. High school football, the most innovative people in our game are coaching on Friday nights. Then they get to Saturday, and they're changing that game, and it's changing Sunday. Every pro coach in this time of year, you're talking to coaches and GMs and blah, blah, blah about hirings and who's going to be next. Any coach that tells me, well, football's always been this way, I just check off my list of people I trust. Anybody that's done learning, I just check off my list. Yeah. Don't want to talk to you. Because I want to learn about more football. I want to be ahead of the curve. And the guys that are ahead of the curve in football are the guys that have Friday night roots, Saturday roots, or the Bill Belichick's of the world that every day they're saying, okay, how do I sharpen my sword a little bit? How do I get a little bit smarter?
You know what's really cool about football, and the NBA doesn't allow this. If you draft a number 1 pick and he bombs, or like a horrible story like Len Bias passed away, it set the Celtics back for a decade. You can't whiff on your number 1 pick top 3. The NFL really allows you to make all sorts of mistakes. Belichick's whiffed on about 8 receivers. Pete's had some first-round picks that couldn't play a lick. His first 3 quarterbacks. But because there's so much talent in America, and you get 7 or 8, 9 new players, and the free agent is what I like about the NFL right now. It's basically telling you, take huge chances.
Take huge chances.
Personnel game.
And understand the one big thing. We get so caught up in the weeds that the geniuses understand the one big thing that's bigger than everything else that governs everything else you're going to do as an organization. Culture. Both of them create a culture that is undeniable, that you cannot confuse with anything else, that when you walk into those buildings, you are going to act, talk, think a certain way. And there's an energy, there's a vibe to that culture. Now, they're different cultures, right? We have Positive Pete and Win Forever culture, which is very different than Never Smile. Now, by the way, Bill's got the 2-button look going on. Have you noticed that? No. He's showing a little chest hair now in his interview.
Is he?
That was, I devolved this conversation real quick. But anyways, the culture of both those buildings is what allows them to make mistakes in the draft or have no drafted wide receivers on your roster and you're in back-to-back Super Bowls and these guys are making plays because they get the most from the least and the best from the best. They're not trusting the talent code. The best athlete, the most talent, that's what's going to win. No, they're trusting the culture code, which is ultimately we build a great culture. Everybody's moving the right direction. Everybody understands their lane. There's no pushback. We're going to be okay. In the long run, we're going to be okay.
Trent Dilfer joining us, The Herd on ESPN Radio. When generally we all have kind of I've always said this with college bowl games. I wait until the last day to predict it because I want to watch 18-year-olds at press conferences.
I want to hear what they're saying, how they're saying it.
NFL, I can kind of go, I get a gut feeling initially with games. And I think we're going to spend so much time talking about Seattle's defense. I really think New England's defense is
really good.
I think it's better than their offense this year. But Brady
really
gets all the credit. I think they're led by their defense.
Their defense is phenomenal. By the way, they've incorporated a lot of the Seahawks secondary concepts where they play some man on the outside, they carry the receivers inside, they zone it off in the inside, eyeballs on the quarterback. I don't want to nerd this thing up with football talk, but they've studied what the Seahawks do in the secondary and how they play their single high looks, and they've incorporated a lot of those looks. Very good Patriots defense.
By the way, Cam Chancellor and that Jamie Collins are similar. They can pass rush. They can cover a back.
Long.
Look like basketball players. So
they eat up space. Think about it. NBA, college basketball, they want long athletes that take space away from the offense. And now with no rules in offense anymore, meaning everybody's spreading you out and doing all this other stuff, the counter is, well, we better have versatile athletes that are long that eat up space because all the offense is trying to do is create space. On defense, all we're trying to do is take away space. So athletically, the longer, more versatile athlete you get defensively, the more space you can take away from the offense.
I've always been told, Deflategate, I've always been told through the years that all quarterbacks like the football to feel a certain way. So the Colts this morning are like, man, there's less air in the ball. What do you make?
It's probably Matthew Hasselbeck that started this whole thing. It's a joke.
How did you like the football?
I didn't like the wax on. I was not real picky, but I didn't like the. So a lot of times back when I played, that they'd take them out of the bag and they're all waxy and.
So you like dirt on it? Or?
Yeah. So what you do is you get dirt, you get some water, you rub it on, you throw it in the dryer. Right, so this is science that getting the ball ready.
I've heard quarterbacks are like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, and some of them are off the chain, crazy with how the ball feels.
Eli wants the
laces high.
Yeah, so he'll go to his guys and find the 2 or 3 balls where the laces are high.
We're all different, but deflating. It's actually, by the way, it's actually harder to throw a deflated ball when it's wet. So the Colts should just shut up. This is stupid. This is a dumb argument. If the ball's half a pound less inflated. It's a non-factor in the big thing.
So when do you go? Trent Dilfer joining us. I
hate the whining after losing. That's like one of my pet peeves. Is when people start whining. Fans, coaches, players, just take it on the chops and move on.
When we go to Scottsdale, are you going to be there Sunday night through like a week for you?
Big golf day Monday. Get in early Monday just to play golf with Boom and TJ. Great golf course. They're I'm a golfer. So Monday's kind of a golf day. Got some promotional stuff Tuesday night, start working.
All right. That's good stuff.
I like to see this is so much better.
No, I know, but you're not available.
I know, I get it. It's not your fault. But I wanted to make sure we reconnected. The eye contact.
Did you see that?
The nonverbal. I heard you talking about the nonverbal communication. That's everything. I listen to your show nonstop.
I know. I
drive kids around. That's my life. I drive kids around.
You're a taxi driver, too.
Yes.
It's nice to have somebody that listens to the show. Hasselbeck, honestly.
Oh, he doesn't listen.
He thinks I'm on MSNBC.
No, he doesn't listen. I know for a fact he doesn't listen.
Yeah. I don't like him that much. I'm thinking about taking him off the show pretty soon.
You see how he's cut his hair a little bit shorter, look like me a little bit, too?
You bet he has.
You're in the Herd. The Thundering Herd Podcast.
I'm always so cynical on these stories. His left eye bruised and swollen shut, Australian golfer Robert Allenby is still shaking over a beating and a robbery that left him unable to remember anything except being dumped in a gutter near a park. You think this stuff happens in the movies. I'm just lucky to be alive. He posted a photo on his private Facebook account showing a blood scrape on his forehead and the bridge of his nose. I'm not sure why he would do that unless there's some sort of issue. I'll continue on. Allenby missed the Sony Open cut. Okay, he's an Australian golfer. And then he went to a Muse wine bar in Honolulu Friday with his caddy and a friend from Australia. He'd been to the bar earlier in the week, thought it was trendy, wanted to try the restaurant. He remembers having dinner, a few glasses of red wine, and that was about it. There was a couple of hours where I was out cold. Even after he returned to the bar Saturday with police and watched a video that showed him leaving with 4 people, he doesn't know who they were or even remember leaving the bar. He's got no recollection until getting kicked and prodded by homeless people searching for whatever he had left. Wallet, cash, PGA Tour badge, cell phone, all taken. I don't know. The receipt showed that he paid for dinner at 10:06 Friday, paid for the wine 10:48, restaurant closed at 11. Allenby said he was checked out by doctors but did not have a blood test to determine if he was drugged. I did ask to get a blood test, but they said it probably would be out of your system. If that happened to me, I would absolutely demand a drug test. I mean, it sounds like a horrible experience, but I'm not trying to be cynical. Do I sound like I'm cynical on this? Here's what I think about stuff like this. Is he married? He's on the road, going out to bars, ends up in a fight, maybe hit on somebody, boyfriend didn't like it.
Colin, how about a little compassion? The guy was beat up, drugged.
No, I'm not trying to be inconsiderate, but
it's how it's sounding.
It's funny. We got video of me leaving a bar with people. I don't know who they are. I was walking upright, no big deal. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I've seen about 50 of these stories, and they never add up to, a random guy beat me up with a bat. It never is that. Ever. If it was Tiger Woods, I'd believe it. But this is, I don't know. The dots don't connect for me. So he's walking out of the bar. We have tape of it. I don't know who these people are. I don't even remember it.
You just don't trust him because he's Australian.
No, I like Aussies. I really do. I do. But here's what I would ask you. Why would you post that picture of you getting smoked on your Facebook unless you're sending a message? Why wouldn't you demand a drug test? How would you...
Well, maybe he was taking other drugs and he didn't want those to come up.
I don't know. I think there's listen, all I'm saying is I'm not going to make any claims. Something doesn't add up here. You know what I think that happens to people like this? They go to a bar, they hit on a barmaid, the barmaid tells her boyfriend, come back the other time, he's waiting, takes care of a soft PGA golfer, whacks him upside the head, guy has scars, he's going to have to tell people, hey, I was jumped, I don't know. Doctors, yeah, probably those drugs are out of your system. Where in the doctor vernacular is probably good enough? We're probably not going to have surgery here. Your heart's probably okay. Yeah, you're probably sick. I don't know. Listen, I'm okay. I am a curious person. I'm not really a journalist. I'm just telling you stuff like this never adds up. Get Hunter Mahan on the phone. He's on my Twitter account. That doesn't feel right to me. Give this story about 2 weeks. Let it bake for 2 weeks. Yeah, it's not going to be aliens and lasers. You're going to find out that it was, flirting with the wrong person or something. I'm 50 years old. I've been in plenty of bars. Nobody's just randomly escorted me out and beaten me with a bat.
Yeah, the term barmaid was new for us, but
you never heard barmaid?
No, glad we got that one today.
How about bar mitzvah? Have you heard of that one?
I don't think they're the same thing.
Okay. I'm going to get hate mail for this. You are not compassionate. No, what I am is watching my life with my eyes open. They got a security camera. He's walking down there. I don't remember any of it. Hi. Almost turned to the camera. Hi. Peace out. PGA rocks. I don't remember any of it. I'm not so sure.
Check out The Herd with Colin Cowherd weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNradio.com, and on ESPNU. The Thundering Herd Podcast.